In 2026, Formula One will undergo a revolution. Not just because of the radical changes in technical regulations, not just because the cars will change shape, weight, and power, but because a new name will appear on the grid with a plan so ambitious it's already making the established teams nervous. Cadillac isn't joining just to be another team. They're coming in backed by General Motors, powered by the brains of Andretti, and with an organization being built to the teeth. This isn't a symbolic entry. It's not a let's see if it works kind of project. Cadillac is arriving as part of the perfect storm. New engines, new aerodynamics, and new chances to shake up the current pecking order. And if they do things right, they could become the biggest headache for the traditional giants. In this video, we'll explain why the Cadillac project might be the most prepared team of this new era. We'll break down the details of their entry, the crucial role of Andretti, the historic investment from General Motors, and a few predictions that might make you see 2026 as the birth of a new F1 powerhouse. Not just anyone can raise their hand and say, I want to enter Formula One. But Mario Andretti isn't just anyone. He's one of the greatest names in racing history. A driver who won the F1 World Championship in 1978 behind the wheel of the revolutionary Lotus 79 with ground effect. But his legacy goes far beyond that. He won the Indianapolis 500 in 1969. He became an IndyCar champion across 4 different decades. He won the Daytona 500, the 12 Hours of Sebring, and competed with pride at Le Mans in midget cars, sprint cars, and the World Endurance Championship. Very few drivers in history can boast that kind of resume. And that's only the beginning, because the Andretti name became a legacy. Michael Andretti, his son, raced in Formula One with McLaren, became a kart champion, and is now the head of Andretti Global, a motorsport empire with teams in IndyCar, Formula E, Extreme E, supercars, and other top-level categories. Even Marco Andretti, Mario's grandson, has followed in their footsteps, racing in IndyCar and Endurance Series. It's a family that's breathed racing fuel for over 50 years. So when the FIA officially opened applications for a new Formula One team on February 2nd, 2023, Mario Andretti didn't hesitate. This was the moment, the opportunity he'd been waiting for. In the past, F1 had over 20 teams trying to qualify for races. 1980s and 1990s, it was normal to see 26, 28, even 30 cars entered, with not all making it to race day. A pre-qualifying process filtered out the slowest ones. Some teams even ran 3 or more cars, like March, Tyrrell, or Brabham. But with modern regulations, the FIA capped participation at 13 teams, 2 cars each. Since 2017, however, F1 has only operated with 10 fixed teams. And although discussions about adding an 11th or 12th team have happened, nothing had ever materialized. Mario Andretti believed he could break through that barrier. And he had every reason to believe it: his experience, his legacy, and the backing of a racing organization that already dominates in several motorsport disciplines. But soon he'd realize, meeting the requirements wasn't enough, because in Formula One, some of the rules are written in the political back rooms of the paddock. Throttle was convinced he had everything: a solid infrastructure, an undeniable legacy, a team with experience across multiple international motorsport disciplines. The FIA reviewed his proposal and gave the green light. Andretti Global met all the technical, financial, and structural requirements, but one step remained, and that step is not controlled by the FIA. It's controlled by the FOM, Formula One Management. The commercial body that represents the current teams manages the television rights and handles the economic interests of the 10 constructors on the grid. And that's where the wall appeared. The FOM said no. The argument? Andretti didn't bring added value to the sport, that it wasn't enough to just be another team, that Formula One was already growing, and any new entrant had to elevate the category, not just participate. But the truth was much harsher. Money, lots of money. Every year, at the end of the season, F1 distributes a massive prize pool among the teams based on their Constructors' Championship position. In 2024, according to estimates, David Formula One took $140 million. Second, Ferrari received $131 million. Third, Red Bull earned $122 million. Fourth, Mercedes, $113 million. Fifth, Aston Martin, $104 million. Sixth, Alpine, $95 million. Seventh, Haas, $87 million. Revived eighth, RB, formerly AlphaTauri, $78 million. Ninth, Williams, $69 million. Resilia, $60 million. And that's not including bonus payments to historic teams like the exclusive fee Ferrari gets just for being Ferrari. So, who would want to split that pie with a newcomer? Who would agree to take a smaller slice without immediate profit in return? Andretti's entry meant fewer millions in the pockets of many, and in an F1 where the show matters, but business rules, that was the real red line. The door was shut, and the message was clear. Dreaming is not enough. You have to be strategically valuable. The logical question is, how could the FOM reject this? Because Andretti's project wasn't an improvisation or a nostalgic family marketing stunt. It was a plan built on real foundations, with investment, with infrastructure, with vision. And to understand the scale of what they're building, you have to look beyond the racetrack. Indianapolis, former Indy Star manufacturing plant. A complex of over 240,000 square feet, undergoing full renovation to become the base for their IndyCar, Formula E and Indy NXT programs. Fully customized for high-end manufacturing, simulation and development. Silverstone Park, United Kingdom. Yes, Andretti plays in Europe too. They already have a 48,000 square foot facility and plan to expand to a 70,000 square foot one. This will be their base to compete, and eventually dominate, in categories like F2, F3, and WEC, as well as their future hub for the F1 project. High-level tech collaborations. Siemens, AWS, Zapata Computing. Advanced data analytics, real-time simulation, strategic forecasting. They're implementing systems that even some current teams don't have. A complete ecosystem to optimize every millimeter of the car before it even hits the track. So, why the rejection? The infrastructure was there, the engineering was solid, the investment was undeniable, and yet the door was slammed shut. So much so that Andretti initiated legal action and mobilized his legal teams to put pressure on the FOM. They demanded that their project be recognized as more than just a family whim. But they also understood that to break into the paddock, they needed more than just solid arguments. They needed political weight, commercial power, and a presence impossible to ignore. That's when Andretti approached General Motors directly. After several meetings, talks, and negotiations, they reached a strategic agreement. GM couldn't be the public face of the project, not with legal proceedings underway, not with the recent rejection still fresh. And Andretti couldn't keep leading the bid without a major transformation. The solution was both brilliant and bold. Use one of GM's most powerful and prestigious sub-brands, Cadillac. A legendary name in American motorsport, with history, with luxury, with media clout, and with a hunger to return to the top of global motorsport. That's how Andretti Cadillac was born, a renewed project, stronger, more polished, more political, and one that FOM could no longer ignore or reject so easily. One of the main reasons FOM could no longer say no was the arrival of GM's deep pockets. The first move was crystal clear, an unprecedented entry fee. $450 million. That was the price for F1 to say, all right, they're in. An anti-dilution fee that reassured the current teams, who had seen a new competitor as a direct threat to their share of the pie. With that check, Cadillac ensured they wouldn't start out with enemies in the paddock. But money was just the beginning. GM committed to becoming a power unit manufacturer. And while they will start with Ferrari engines in 2026, development of their own power unit is already underway. Headquartered in North Carolina, and aiming for 2029 as the year of full technological independence. This is not a short-term gamble. It's a long-term investment. And while most teams share infrastructure, Andretti Cadillac built up a workforce of 350 people spread across Indiana, Michigan, North Carolina, and the UK, a logistical ecosystem designed to compete with the best. Most importantly, they bring the weight of a global brand. Cadillac means luxury. It means legacy. It means America. And for Liberty Media, the American consortium that now owns Formula One, having GM on board isn't just convenient, it's strategic. With all these moves, economic, logistical, and symbolic, Cadillac locked in their entry into F1, and with FIA approval already in hand, nothing can stop them now. What Cadillac is about to achieve has no precedent in modern Formula One, because in the last 30 years, entering the pinnacle of motorsport has been anything but easy. Many have tried. Almost all have failed. The most common path has been to buy out existing, usually struggling teams, squads drowning in debt, short on results, and teetering on the edge of collapse. Take Sahara Force India as a prime example, a midfield team based in Silverstone, that was doing relatively well until financial problems dragged it down. In 2018, the team went into administration and was reborn as Racing Point under Lawrence Stroll. Today, we know it as Aston Martin. The pattern repeats. Red Bull Racing, now an unstoppable force, bought out Jaguar in 2005. Their sister team, Visa Cash App RB, came from the ashes of Minardi. Mercedes, before becoming a powerhouse, was Brawn GP, which was Honda, which had been BAR before that. The modern history of F1 is a story of mergers, acquisitions, and rebirths. Building a team from scratch? That's nearly impossible. And yet, there's one recent case that parallels what Andretti Global is now attempting. Gene Haas. In 2016, Gene Haas, a California-based entrepreneur, founder of Haas Automation, and co-owner of the successful Stuart Haas NASCAR team, decided to enter Formula One. He had racing experience, strong US connections, and a clear goal: to turn his brand into a global name. That's how the Haas F1 team was born, the first American team on the grid since 1986. But Haas didn't come in guns blazing. His entry was calculated, modest, and extremely strategic. He set up operations in Kannapolis, North Carolina, with a secondary base in the UK. He made a technical alliance with Ferrari, allowing him to cut costs and achieve decent performance from day one. It worked. Haas scored points in their debut race in Australia 2016 and remained competitive in their early years. But make no mistake, the team was never a powerhouse. Their infrastructure was limited. Their budget was far smaller than that of the big names. Their ambition? To survive, not to dominate. Now, let's compare that to Cadillac and Andretti. Yes, both are American ventures, but the difference is massive.
Start with the context. When Haas entered in 2016, F1 was in a rough spot. Teams like Caterham, HRT, and Manor had folded due to financial troubles. The sport feared it would shrink to just 9 teams. Haas wasn't just accepted, he was welcomed. But now F1 is booming. 10 teams are thriving. Broadcasting deals are worth billions. The commercial expansion is unstoppable. Nobody's desperate for a new entry. That's why Cadillac had to pay a $450 million anti-dilution fee, just to be considered. And structurally, it's a whole different ballgame. Gene Haas came in with a basic, outsourced operation. Cadillac arrives with a financial and technical juggernaut behind it. They've partnered with General Motors. They're setting up dual bases in the US and Europe. They've secured cutting-edge tech partnerships with AWS, Siemens, and Zapata Computing. They're developing their own power unit for the mid-term future. Haas was caution, ingenuity, and practicality. Cadillac is ambition, horsepower, and revolution. Both carry the American flag in F1, yes. But while one came in to survive, the other is coming to rule. And in a sport where the weak don't last, the difference between showing up and staying in the fight lies in having a vision that goes far beyond the next Grand Prix. Cadillac has that vision. Can a debuting team conquer the Formula One throne? It sounds like a ridiculous question in a sport where domination demands years, sometimes decades, of refinement, infrastructure, and billions of dollars. And yet, it has happened. In the entire history of F1, only 2 teams have ever managed to win in their debut season. The first was Alfa Romeo in 1950, a different era, the 0 year of Formula One, where everyone was a rookie and where one name made history. Giuseppe Farina, the first ever world champion. But that was more of a collective birth than an individual feat. It was the origin, the beginning. The second case, on the other hand, was a modern miracle. 2009, Honda decided to pull out of F1 due to the global financial crisis. The team seemed doomed to vanish. But then Ross Brawn, the mastermind behind Schumacher's championships with Ferrari, bought the team for £1. Yes, £1. He renamed the team Brawn GP, signed a deal with Mercedes for engines, and gambled on a radical technical solution. A component that was legal, but brilliant, and one that nobody else had anticipated, the double diffuser. And the result was historic. Jenson Button won 6 of the first 7 races that year. Brawn GP obliterated the competition, and in its one and only season of existence, it claimed both the Drivers' and Constructors' Championships, a debut, a title, and a legend that, 1 year later, would become what we now know as Mercedes-AMG Petronas. So, can Cadillac dream of a triumphant debut? Yes, but it will take more than money, more than marketing, more than willpower. It will require a strategy as sharp as Brawn's, a reading of the 2026 regulations, that uncovers loopholes, and execution down to the last millimeter. Impossible, maybe, irresistible, without a doubt. Because in Formula One, major rule changes always open the door to the unthinkable. And if Cadillac plays its cards right, it might not just enter Formula One, it could rewrite it. The enemy isn't McLaren. It's not Red Bull, not Mercedes, not even Ferrari. The real challenge on the horizon is the new Formula One. Because in 2026, everything changes. Everything. Size, weight, aerodynamics, engines, overtaking systems. Every piece of the puzzle will be different. And if history has taught us anything, it's that when there's a major change, there's a major opportunity, but also a major threat. For the established teams, the challenge will be to unlearn. For the new ones, it will be to adapt faster than ever. And that's where Andretti has a secret weapon. One they've built slowly, racing year after year in IndyCar and Formula E. Two categories that, interestingly, are becoming more and more like the F1 of the future. In IndyCar, the cars are smaller, lighter, more aggressive, just like the 2026 F1 cars, which will reduce weight, size, and wheelbase. No more 800-kilo giants. These will be agile machines, and much closer to Indy cars. In Formula E, the focus is on energy management and strategic deployment of electric power, exactly where F1 is headed, from 20% hybrid power to 50%. Engines that think as much as they roar. Plus, F1 will say goodbye to DRS and welcome the manual override mode, a boost button strikingly similar to Indy cars' push to pass. Coincidence? Not at all. Convergence. Because while there will still be differences, like open development in F1 versus spec chassis in IndyCar, the technical essence is aligning, and Andretti holds the advantage. Their engineers already understand how compact cars behave. They already work with hybrids. They already manage similar strategies. They're already living in the future. The problem is that the others know it too. Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren, they're all preparing for 2026, investing millions, hiring top talent, simulating every possible change. Cadillac and Andretti won't just have to understand this new world, they'll have to conquer it, fast, with zero margin for error. Because one thing is certain, F1 in 2026 will be a jungle, and only those who evolve fastest will survive. What if all this isn't enough? What if Cadillac finally makes it to Formula One and fails? That's always a possibility, because this is Formula One, and victories are never handed out for free. That's why Cadillac has made a decision many consider surprising, yet deeply sensible. They won't be developing their own engine from day one, not because they lack ambition, but because they have something even more valuable: good judgment. In February 2024, it was officially announced that Cadillac would use Ferrari power units for their debut in 2026, a technical and commercial agreement that might seem contradictory for a brand aiming to represent American industrial might. But in truth, it's a masterstroke. Cadillac knows it's not yet ready to build a competitive power unit. Not yet. It would be absurd to believe they could achieve in 2 years what Honda or Mercedes took decades to perfect. Red Bull Powertrains is the perfect example. Even with all the money in Milton Keynes, they haven't managed to fully replicate what Honda left behind. Today, they're struggling, trying to figure out how to integrate engine and chassis, losing ground to rivals who already understand the delicate art of converting electric energy into pure traction. Cadillac doesn't want to make that mistake, so they're choosing to learn first. To study closely how a manufacturer like Ferrari works. A team that, while not dominant, is always in the fight for podiums. And that is all Cadillac needs in its first year. Meanwhile, the other half of the puzzle is falling into place. Andretti engineers with Formula E experience already know how to maximize electric torque. They understand hybrid systems, energy recovery, thermal efficiency. Those embedded in IndyCar have spent years refining aerodynamics that rely not on ground effect, but on moving surfaces and dynamic airflow management, in single-seaters whose dimensions already resemble what the new Formula One is moving toward. Piece by piece, Cadillac is building not just a car, but a philosophy. One that doesn't promise to win from day one, but also refuses to improvise. They will observe, learn, absorb, and when the time is right, strike with full force. Of course, having the right plan is one thing, executing it is another. Because even with the perfect strategy, this is still Formula One. And in this game, no one waits for the newcomer. But no matter how much money, infrastructure, or partnerships you have, there's one element that can make or break the whole thing: the drivers. And that's where Cadillac still hasn't made its big move. The driver lineup for their debut project remains a mystery. At one point, Mario Andretti was clear: Colton Herta would be a great option. An American driver, proven talent in IndyCar, and a flag bearer for what this team wants to represent. An all-American team with American soul and blood. But things have changed, and so has the plan. Andretti later stated they'd prefer a mix, a seasoned veteran paired with a young talent. That opened Pandora's box. Among the rookies, there's Mick Schumacher, with 2 F1 seasons and a burning desire for redemption. Felipe Drugovich, F2 champion, frustrated by lack of chances at Aston Martin, and Gabriel Bortoleto, a promising young Brazilian, still needing to prove he's ready for the jump. Even Alex Palou's name has surfaced, offering a similar profile to Herta. At the intermediate level, names like Guan Yu Zhou stand out, not just for his proven skills, but for the commercial power of drawing the Chinese market, as Tsunoda has done with Japan. But if there's something that can make a difference from day one, it's leadership on track, and that's why 2 veterans emerge as the strongest options: Sergio Perez and Valtteri Bottas, both with over a decade of experience, both with podiums, wins, and something even more valuable, the ability to help develop a car from scratch. Checo is beloved by engineers. He speaks their language, knows when to push, when to stay quiet, when to listen. He was vital in the growth of Force India, Racing Point, and at Red Bull, he played the perfect wingman for Verstappen's dominance. Bottas, while less flashy, is a Swiss watch behind the wheel. Methodical, precise, cerebral. At Alfa Romeo, and previously at Mercedes, he was key in fine-tuning setups, optimizing car balance, making decisions that improved the car each weekend. It's no coincidence top teams now value drivers who do more than drive. They understand the car like an engineer. Ferrari has Hamilton, Aston Martin has Alonso, Sauber relies on Hülkenberg. Will Cadillac be smart enough to follow that path? Because building a competitive car is hard enough, but putting it in the hands of someone who knows how to extract its full potential and then tell the engineers how to make it better is even harder. Cadillac has everything, almost everything. But until they put names on those 2 seats, they'll remain in the shadows. And if they get it wrong, the whole structure could come crashing down, like it has for many others before. So now that we've gone through Cadillac's options, what would be their ideal driver pairing? Cadillac cannot afford to throw in a rookie and hope for the best, while the rest of the grid has decades of experience. They need certainty. And the last 2 drivers we mentioned, Sergio Perez and Valtteri Bottas, could offer exactly that. Both know what it means to fight at the back of the pack, but they also know how to win races, challenge for championships, and help build a competitive car from scratch. Perez played a key role in transforming Racing Point into Aston Martin. Bottas helped Mercedes become one of the most dominant dynasties in F1 history. Combined, they have over 500 Grand Prix starts. Too old. That argument doesn't hold. Hamilton will be 41, Alonso is 43, and they're still performing at the highest level. Who's to say Perez at 36, or Bottas at the same age in 2026 can't do the same? Been out of F1? Niki Lauda stepped away and came back to win. Schumacher did it. Alonso too. The greats never really leave. But this duo isn't just about marketing or nostalgia. It's about development, about building, brick by brick, a competitive car. This isn't about winning in 2026. It's about not sinking. And if we play a hypothetical game where the rest of the grid doesn't change in the 2026 silly season, Cadillac wouldn't look bad at all. Sauber will line up Bortoleto and Hülkenberg. Haas will have Behrman and Ocon. Racing Bulls will go with Hadjar and Lawson. Alpine with Colapinto and Gasly. Williams with Albon and Sainz. That's at least 5 teams with younger, less experienced, or unbalanced lineups. Sure, the top pairings, Ferrari, Hamilton, Leclerc, Mercedes, Russell Antonelli, Red Bull, Verstappen Tsunoda, and McLaren, Norris Piastri, will still be the standard, but Cadillac isn't looking to compete with them from day one. They want to learn, to grow, and on that journey, few guides are better than two veterans with hundreds of battles under their belts. That's why this potential pairing isn't a patch. It's a strategy, a way to shield the project, to send a clear message. We're not here to improvise. We're here to build something serious, and we won't fail. Now, this is no longer a promise. It's a countdown. Cadillac has done the hardest part, entering the most exclusive circus in global motorsport. And they've done it not with fireworks or empty promises, but with strategy, humility, and long-term vision. Because if you're going to enter Formula One, you'd better make it count. And if Cadillac is thinking long-term, as they clearly are, then names like Valtteri Bottas and Sergio Checo Perez become more than rumours. They become logical pieces, strategists in helmets. Because you don't need two risky rookies. You need two drivers who speak the engineer's language, who know how to protect a car, provide accurate feedback, and help evolve the machine race after race. That's how you accelerate your development curve faster than anyone else. That's what purposeful growth looks like. That's how you avoid chaos in your debut season. And beyond that, both are marketable stars, icons with millions of fans, drivers backed by sponsors who bring more than just cash. They bring reach, loyalty, and credibility. Cadillac wouldn't just be building a race team, they'd be building a global brand, and they know it. That's why every step has been meticulous. The base, the engine, the engineers, the technical focus. Now, only one piece remains, the drivers. That announcement will come before the end of the 2025 season, and it will set the tone for what promises to be the most anticipated preseason in recent history. Because in 2026, Cadillac won't show up as the new team. They'll arrive as the disruptor, as the threat, as the nightmare for the old guard. And when the lights go out in Bahrain, everyone will know Formula One no longer belongs to Europe alone.